Hello and welcome to our film show where we are delighted to be back in cinemas after almost 7 months. As people are once again allowed to watch films on the big screen, our critic Lisa Nesselson is in very close proximity to one of those screens here in Paris. Hi Lisa, so this is a very exciting moment.
It is indeed. Ordinarily, I would be on the edge of my seat, but I was asked very nicely to stand here with a microphone instead. Believe it or not, the theater right behind me is where on October 29th at 8:25 in the morning, I saw the movie Adieu les cons, Bye Bye Morons, because that night, cinemas, the 6,000 screens in France, were ordered to close until today. And that movie went on to sweep the Césars, the French National Film Awards, winning 7 out of its 12 nominations, including Best Film, Best Screenplay, and Best Director for all-around creative guy Albert Dupontel.
Indeed, that was a word-of-mouth sensation, and it's back in screens again. Let's get a reminder of that very surreal film.
Bonjour. Vous êtes qui? Je suis sustrappée. J'étais à l'agence de santé.
Excusez-moi de vous dire ça, madame, mais on kidnappe pas les gens pour leur demander de l'aide pour un dossier.
On leur tire pas non plus dessus quand ils sont au travail.
C'est sur moi que je tirais.
Ah bon?
Prévenez à l'intérieur.
Est-ce qu'il peut récidiver?
J'aimerais vous dire que non, mais maintenant, il est en fuite, en rage.
Madame, si je peux vous aider, c'est très gentil, mais je vois pas comment.
Si je retrouve le dossier, vous m'aiderez?
Oui.
Now, that movie was only in theaters for 9 days before the shutdown, but it managed to attract 800,000 paying customers. In France, they count the number of tickets sold rather than the amount of money taken in, which makes it a lot easier to compare how well something is doing. And since people wanted to see the movie then, they're certainly going to want to see it now. This is one of the rare instances where winning a César, I think, is really going to influence box office. That's rarely the case. People pay much more attention to the literary awards, which are guaranteed to boost sales of books. But this time, I think it's going to boost sales of movie tickets.
Absolutely. Now, we're officially allowed back in cinemas at the moment, but it's not exactly a free-for-all. There are rules. How does this reopening work in practice?
Oh, there are rules. There is a curfew drop from be inside by 7 p.m. or else being €135 fine if they catch you outdoors, to be indoors by 9 at night or else. There was a movement to have the ticket time stamped on your ticket to prove that you are in good faith trying to get home, but the authorities said no to that. You must cover your nose and mouth at all times, which means they can't sell you candy or popcorn, and you can only have 35% capacity in the theater, and you must leave 2 seats empty between any people who did not arrive at the theater together. There is to date no instance of COVID-19 of a cluster having started in a movie theater.
That is good news, and people don't seem to be too worried because they're already headed back to cinemas. Let's hear from some of those movie fans.
The wait was rather long, unprecedented. We accepted, we endured, and now we're going to enjoy.
We were truly looking forward to this. So glad life is coming back to normal.
When you watch films on Netflix, it's just not the same. As cinemas are reopening now, I thought I'd help the French film industry.
So Lisa, as you've said, this is a partial reopening. When can we expect cinemas to fully reopen?
Well, there's a gradual procedure in place, provided the COVID infection rates continue to go down. So for about 3 weeks, we'll be at 35% capacity. If all looks good, then they will make that 50% capacity with only 1 seat in between patrons. And we're hoping they'll be able to add another show in the evening, maybe 2, because the curfew will go down to 11 p.m. There's a lot of moving parts. The plan is to absolutely eliminate all restrictions by June 30th, which is convenient because that is when the annual Fête du Cinéma starts, which is a 5-day nationwide celebration where tickets to any and every movie cost merely €3. That's about $5. And 6 days after that, if all goes according to plan, the Cannes Film Festival, which was canceled last year, will begin again on July 6th.
Well, our fingers are firmly crossed, but even between now and then, we're not going to be short on films to choose from. There is even something of a backlog of new releases to get through.
The word backlog is very appropriate. There are 40 movies coming out this week alone. Now, 21 of those were already in release when the shutdown began. Some of them for several weeks, some of them for only 2 days.
Indeed, one of the films which only had a couple of days in cinemas was Garçon Chiffon, or My Best Part, Nicolas Maury's debut as a director. He's better known here in France as an actor in the popular series Call My Agent. We spoke to him about that tricky start to his career behind the camera.
J'ai eu l'impression qu'il y a eu comme ça une, pour ne pas dire mépris, comme un très grand manque de considération envers la culture. Puis ce terme non essentiel aussi, c'est toutes ces choses-là qui nous ont, nous les artistes, créateurs, théâtre, salles, vraiment mis à mal. Mais là, j'ai envie d'oublier tout ça et j'ai envie de me dire que les spectateurs vont être joyeux. Il y a les terrasses, certes, mais je pense que de s'enfermer dans le noir et puis enfin voir les œuvres des autres, je pense que ça peut être très bien.
Ça va mon chiffon? Ça va, j'arrive demain.
Je descends pour y voir plus clair.
Mais qu'est-ce que t'as, mon petit chose? T'as l'air tout chose. Pourquoi tu me parles jamais de tes amours?
Plus je l'aime, plus j'ai le monstre vert aux yeux rouges qui grandit en moi.
Ça va aller, mon chiffon.
In fact, that film, Garçon Chiffon, sold out in its very first screening at a central Paris cinema, along with 6 other films, so that's great news for him. So, Lisa, we've got more than enough movies to be getting on with now, but what happens when this glut of films has already been shown?
Well, glut is a pretty good word. In normal circumstances, there are already 13 to 14 new films released every week nationwide. You would have to bring out 40 to 50 now to absorb the backlog, in addition to the films that were already planned to be released in any case. And the Fair Competition Board tried very hard to put up a concerted effort for, you know, the very powerful studios to give some breathing room to the smaller distributors, but no, that didn't happen. Production levels, surprisingly, are actually okay, except for about 2 months when there was really total lockdown. But the funding for production dropped by 30% because it's a virtuous sort of circle. The money that comes in from the previous thing goes to make the next thing. And distributors are really in a tight spot because they haven't been able to do what they do, which is get their movies into theaters. So we're a little worried about them. But exhibitors, movie theaters, have been propped up by the authorities, and so they probably will not have to fire staff. That's excellent news.
That's right. Those managing cinemas here in France have stayed afloat while doors were closed, but there is a lot riding on the months to come if they want to keep their cinemas open. Let's hear from Mathieu Guetta, director of the Majestic Bastille Cinema, as he looks ahead.
When you reopen after 20 weeks, you want just one thing, and that is to be reunited with cinemagoers. We hope that with a number of films on show throughout the summer and into the second half of 2021, that the public will show up.
We've all spent the last year trying to protect our own health and other people's, so here's some fantastic news that falls into that category. Apparently, there is evidence that going out to a movie is really good for your health. Can you elaborate, Lisa?
You should absolutely go out to a movie, but you don't have to take my word for it. In 2019, in the British Journal of Psychiatry, they published the results of a 10-year study. They followed 2,148 people and compared how often they attended cultural events with their mood. And the results were absolutely conclusive. It turns out that if you go to a cultural event as little as 1 time a month, that reduces your risk of ever developing depression by 48%. So obviously, as soon as you finish watching this show, grab your coat, go to the door, and get yourself to a movie, a museum, a concert.
And finally, it's going to be a very busy week for us, what with theatres, museums, cinemas, galleries, everything opening. But if I asked you what's on top of your list, what would you be most looking forward to?
Well, I really like the name of a series that's going to take place at the Forum des Images in central Paris. It's called 35% in 35. And what does that mean? That means they're limited to 35% capacity, and they are going to project on celluloid, sprocket holes, beam of light, films in their collection in 35 millimeters. So a little Jean Gabin over here, a little New Wave Classics over there. And you know, sometimes it's just really nice to sit back in your seat, not to see the hottest new movie, but some film that has really stood the test of time. I'm also very, very eager to see the brand new mini museum devoted to Georges Méliès that's going to open in the Cinémathèque Française. Méliès is deservedly known as the father of special effects, a real pioneer of the silent era. You know, the rocket going into the eyeball of the man in the moon, that's Méliès. It was supposed to open in January, and it will open now, and it will be a permanent feature at the Cinémathèque. And I am really looking forward to finally getting to see the Danish film Another Round, called Drunk, here. It was only in theaters for about 9 days before the shutdown, and in the interim it has gone on to win an awful lot of major awards, including, of course, the Oscar in the Best International Film category.
Thank you very much for those excellent tips, Lisa, and for joining us today. Let's wrap up with a taste of Thomas Vinterberg's award-winning Another Round, starring Mads Mikkelsen. Otherwise, do remember to check out our website for more arts and culture. We're on social media too. And for those headed to the cinema, enjoy the film.
It's okay. It's okay. Er I fuld? Nej, det er vi ikke. Forklar det for børnene, hvad som har hændt.
Jeg blev lidt fuld i går.
Jeg hele tiden synes, det var fint, at I eksperimenterede alt muligt, men det her, det er ordentligt.
Jeg går ikke ud fra, at der er nogen her, der har et problem, jeg skal vide noget om.